It's Amber Scotchburn from Tutoring with a Twist. I think I'm on take 3 of this live video. And today I'm here to talk to you about communication, specifically the communication process, because I think we're actually going to spend this week on communication. And so each day this week, I'll give you a tip on communication in your home, as kids are not attending bricks and mortar school, but are going to be e-learning or online learning. This will give you some perspective on how best to manage it in your house. Last week, we had 5 tips for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and you can check them out on our Facebook page. And today then would be day 6. So communication. I really like this one particular quote, which is, "The problem with communication is the illusion that it's been accomplished." So I'll just actually repeat that one more time. The problem with communication is the illusion that it's been accomplished. And I'll explain a little bit more what I mean by that when we go through the communication process. But I thought what I'll do is tell you a little bit of a funny story. So my eldest son and I went to some counseling together when he was about 8 or 9. And how it worked was he went into one room with like the kids and the kids counselors. And then I went into the adult room with the adults and the adult counselors. And essentially we'd get the same information would be shared in both groups, but for the kids group, they would share it more at a kid level, and obviously at the adult group at an adult level. And so then you could have a really good opportunity to talk to your kids about it after. So this one particular session was on communication and some statistics. And so the lady was sharing that there's only 3.5 to 19 minutes a day spent between parents and kids on meaningful communication. Okay, so 3.5 to 19 minutes. And and then they said something like 540 minutes a day on media. So just they were saying that comparison. Well, I was laughing as she was talking, and as the speaker was talking. And she got a little bit upset with me and told me that it really wasn't a funny matter, wasn't really a laughing matter. And so she went on to share a little bit more about that and what happens in your house. And again, I'm laughing. And finally, she was like, stopped her talking. And she's like, "What is so funny?" And I thought, oh, my son, who's in the other room, is probably thinking, oh, I wish my mom only spoke to me for meaningful conversation 3.5 to 19 minutes a day. Because in our house, we're big talkers. So that's why I was laughing at that. He was probably thinking, I want to get in that house. And of course, the whole point to this speaker saying this was that that wasn't good. That wasn't a good statistic. So we needed to be aware of that statistic. So we were talking more to our kids. So anyways, I thought that was pretty funny. And sure enough, when we did get out of our groups, that is the first thing he and I talked about, was just the amount of communication that we had in our home. So I thought that it would be such a good one, because if that was the way in which we had been, if that was the statistic and it was true to your house, or whatever the statistic was true to your house pre-pandemic, that's going to be another layer of this that's changing, right? That we have to adapt to and mold to. And perhaps we didn't really take communication 101 at school, and the illusion that then we're now communicating and the person's understanding us on the other end receiving it is just that, or could be just that, an illusion. And so I thought this week, if we talked about the different tips around communication, that would be helpful. So essentially, there's communication process. I thought that's what we'd start with today. And that is, there's a sender who sends the message. And when the person sends the message, they are sending it to this receiver. Okay. And then the receiver needs to give feedback In order for what? In order for the sender to make sure that the right message that they're trying to send is sent. And so what could happen is that just the sender sends a message, hasn't checked in with the receiver, so they don't know that it's been sent. If you think about it, right now, a kid would have went to school before, they would have gotten the message from the teacher, but now it's going to be online. There's just so many layers to it. There's so many ways a message could be sent, whether it is verbally, whether it is online, whether it's through body language. There's lots of different ways. And then, of course, to check that the actual receiver received the message that the sender was trying to send. And so that's what the feedback is so important for, because if you don't have feedback, then there might be an assumption made that this message has been received properly. So in knowing that, let's look at what could happen if it's not sent, and let's have some fun with that. So for instance, if a sender's sending a message, and this came up today actually in my talk with the radio station, and the announcer that I was talking with was like, did you read the article about Zoom and how the BC government has bought Zoom? And I said to him, yes. However, maybe we need to back up and talk about what is even Zoom, because we're going to assume that we're way into a conversation about Zoom and maybe the merits around Zoom, and somebody might not even know what Zoom is. So even actually in our article on Tutoring with a Twist on our blog, we talked about what online tutoring looks like. And I said to my tutor writing it, we need to back up here and talk about what is Zoom, what is the capabilities of something like Zoom, so that parents aren't already lost in the conversation, or a child's not already lost in the conversation. So you really want to make sure that the language is the same, right? If you were speaking a different language with somebody, obviously you wouldn't receive their message if you didn't speak that language. So with all of this online learning, we just need to be really aware, everybody, that not everybody's going to have that language. So we may have to introduce them to that language or back up and be aware of that. What if there is something being sent? So for example, our daughter was sent something by her chemistry teacher, and this chemistry teacher had embedded a video within a document. Well, due to the programming my daughter was using and the programming the teacher was using, those two programs actually didn't talk together, if that makes sense. So in computer world, a message was being sent, and then the other message, we could see it, but we couldn't actually hear it or receive it. So that can be an issue, right? So if somebody does send it, think about this like with a text. If you sent a text and you're thinking, oh my goodness, that person's not responded. Well, we don't actually know if they got the text. And even if it has a red receipt on it and it says red, that could also mean that they did, but like in the course of their in the course of their busy day. So it doesn't actually mean that something has went through. So we just want to make sure that we're aware of that. And what if it goes to the wrong person, our message? And so, for instance, you say to your child, hey, don't forget, we have this appointment with your teacher on Zoom this afternoon at 1. And you say that in general when you're having the conversation with your kids at the breakfast table. And they then go off and do whatever they're doing. And they didn't realize perhaps you were talking to that one particular child. So the other child shows up at 1, thinking it's for them, but it was actually the other one. And the other child who didn't realize it had already booked something else for 1. Maybe another Zoom call, maybe a FaceTime with a friend. Maybe they're right in the middle of doing their PE because they're downloaded a video and are doing some exercise. I mean, who knows? But if your intended target didn't receive it, then you're going to be upset as the sender if you're thinking that you've sent this clear message. So there's timing involved in it. There's that check-in with the person that you're sending it to. Now, what if the person gets the message and they decode it wrong. So if we think about this, maybe teachers are going to be saying, okay, I'd like to have something handed in. Well, in the past, what handed in could mean is like physically handed in at school. Well, what happens now is it could be handed in online. And so, for instance, our son, our youngest son, had a big project that was due and he needed to submit it. And so it was done in a group. And so the group lead person submitted it online on their profile. Well, that meant that my son didn't have something underneath his name, and that's what the kind of the teacher needed to see when the teacher went down the list. So so everybody would have to have submitted to the same thing. So if that, in that respect, if we think about it for a sec, the message was sent, and it was just decoded wrong. So it was done, not a big deal, it got fixed. But that's just something to be aware of. So we need to be super, super clear that there is a communication process. And those are just a couple examples of this new online world that we're going to be dealing with, where the message might not actually be received. And that's why the feedback is so, so important. So just keeping in mind that we're all going through this together. And so there are going to be a lot of layers that need to be understood by all parties. And we just need to keep communication open. Make sure you're sending the feedback, make sure you're getting the clarity as the sender, make sure you're kind of, did I send that okay? Are they getting it before jumping to a conclusion? So probably the main point is just don't make any assumptions. Don't make any conclusions on that. All right. And then we're going to end with always finding our heart, putting our hand on our heart, finding our heartbeat, and realizing that we just need to get through the next moment. Because if we can feel our heartbeat, we're winning. So in this crazy nutty time, remember to find your heartbeat and you're winning. Stay tuned tomorrow for a live tip. And we're going to continue with Communication 101 because there's so much to share on communication. Thanks so much, guys. Amber Scotchburn, tutoring with a twist. Have a great day.